is the music and the fact that Balanchine used this score, I think 4 or 5 times. I think starting in the early 1930s, up until the piece that you worked on today. And I'm not sure, but I think that he used this score more times. It was a repeat, I think, more than any other score during his lifetime.
Well, he liked to do things so he got them right.
Right.
So luckily he got it right, because then he didn't redo it after us.
That's true. Yeah. Well, it is gorgeous music. And I know, Mimi, yesterday you said something about how much you liked the music, and then you quoted somebody. Pushkin?
What did he say? Radiant sorrow is how he described the music. Mm-hmm. That was his quote for the music. I think it was Volkov that was writing an article about the music, about Glinka, and talking about
sensual in there too.
Passion, sensual, contained passion.
That's one of your specialties, I think. Contained passion. Yes, I do. We should talk about speed and stamina. This is a very general question, but how do you manage the stamina issue in Valse Fantasie?
But basically, the stamina is just a question of just doing it over and over and over, full out, don't hold back. He always used to say, what are you saving for? You know, it's not like a bank. You can't save and have energy to call on later.
It's
you
repetition,
have to.
yeah.
Repetition, just like an athlete, any athlete, same thing.
Right. And you, Mimi, did you have any stamina issues with?
Oh, big issues. I would do a run through, and then when I was tired, I would run through it again, so that it would feel like a pleasure when I actually performed it.
Did it feel like it looked like a pleasure when you performed it?
It was. I mean, not that we still didn't get tired from it, but in fact, it was much easier.
Yeah. Well, I like that. I like the challenge of getting tired, because if you accomplished it, I mean, I don't know about your roles, but in some of the killer roles that he did for Valella, which I sort of inherited, most all of them, just to get through it, you know, we sort of felt, okay, you know, you deserved your paycheck. But if you could really feel like you nailed it, which meant that the dancer had to take our own responsibility. You can't rely on the ballet master. City Ballet has many, many performances. There's never enough time for rehearsal. So if you have a solo, you have to take your own time, grab a cassette or a pianist and do what you need to do. You know, but those are the days that are the good memories, when you feel I accomplished something.
I wrote down here I was going to ask you about speed, but then when I was watching you work with these dancers, I thought, well, it's not really speed, it's riding the horse, it's that anticipating, it's being on top. Mimi, you were saying, and go, you know, and you have to go.
Tried to push her a little bit,
yeah.
You know, and one needs that help sometimes in rehearsal.
Oh, sure.
I mean, you can give it to yourself at some point, but it's nice to initially have somebody push you to keep going, and eventually
and to be a little ahead. I mean, just a little on top. I mean, that really counts here.
Well, the thing is that he in his classes, I always go back to his classes, because all of Balanchine's choreography, if you can't do it right if you don't have the class. But it's not a question of fast or slow, because he would give very slow combinations in class. Some of the adagios went on forever. I mean, depended on the day, but he wasn't just all about speed, but you have to be able to dance the right tempo of the music, because music comes first. And a lot of music is really meant to be played quickly, and he would never slow anything down. He was always a stickler for the tempo markings from the composer, which necessitated the dancers having a technique to keep up with it, but you have to be speedy without looking rushed. Which is the trick. You can't, which is why this dancing on top of the beat is important, because a lot of times he wanted the dancers to dance quite ahead of the beat so that it didn't look like they were tired, and they got used to it, so that by the time you got into performance, you would be really right on top of the music, not behind it, not ahead of it, just on top of it, you know, which gave the company such a bite.
Today, in the coaching today, what I noticed was that it's not and one, it's one. It's that, you know, really being on top of it. And I was sort of trying to feel that in my own body and realizing that my inclination, I'm not a dancer, is that I want the and before the one. I don't want to go for that one. And did you work on that in class? I mean, that sort of that dynamic.
Yeah, there's a joke about it because he goes, and one, and one, and one. He wouldn't say 1, 2, 3, 4. It'd be like, and a one, and a one, or a one, and, you know, it was always the equality of the beat, not 1, 2, 3, 4, or one. It was like every beat was, you know, equality. Balanchine a lot of times would have the pianist just play a chord, and then we'd have to do the tendus, the frappes. But what the point of that was not just to have a chord and for us to do it, was that the frappe or the tendu or whatever the exercise was kept the inner beat. So even if the pianist just played chord,
1, 2, 3,
chord,
1, 2, 3, yeah.
but not chord, whatever we felt, which I've seen happen, and people say play the chord. It's not the chord, it's what's in between the chord. And that we had to have in our bodies, in the bar. These are tendus at the bar, frappes at the bar, grand battements in the center. And eventually you do that enough every day. He taught 6 days a week in our time. And so, you know, you do that every day, then when it gets to choreography or ballets, you already have that sense of rhythm and that urgency.
You see that in the little circle, when they're running in the circle. The importance of keeping the beat as they run.
What about the question of the glissade? You wanted a quicker glissade.
It's the technique of the glissade. So it's not a question of quicker. Your feet work quicker, but you don't do it faster. Do you understand what I mean? In other words, the feet work.
The second leg.
The second leg is fast, but
Second
also the
leg
first
coming
one has
in.
to.
Yeah,
the
first and the
legs have to
second
work,
coming in.
Feet have to work fast, but you can do them fast and still stay in tempo. So even if it's slow, you still get up into position fast.
You know, it's a beautiful little thing. Only it's not. I mean, it is a little thing. It's short, but it is. I'm really glad that it's still around, because I think it's one of those things that could get lost in the shuffle.
Very easy, yeah.
But you know, it's
Well, it's like I was
still
telling the kids, it's underappreciated because you have to really commit yourself to selling it and understanding it's a big, important ballet, even though it's only 7 minutes long.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's danced with that kind of intent, it's just as important as Tchaikovsky par Tarantella, but it has to be danced because it's Glinka, it's Tool, it can look old-fashioned, it can look, you know, a little banal if it's danced without the commitment. But if you
It
dance
has to have a dynamic quality.
and they did great. I mean,
And they were
getting
wonderful.
it.
About his classes and how important they are.
He actually felt his teaching was more important than his choreography and may go on longer. I used to argue with him about that a lot because I said, no. I said, your ballets are going to go on forever. But his point was, well, yeah, but they'll be changed. He even said this in numerous interviews.
But the basics will be.
The steps will be there. He says this, you know, I mean, it's on tape, you know, that different people will rehearse them, different people will coach them, they'll be different.
The idea will be lost.
The idea will be lost, which is why I really am so happy that this archive project.
Because you bring back the idea.
And I've learned a lot. I've watched some of the tapes of Alicia Alonso coaching theme and Marie-Jean coaching Barocco, and I'm like, wow. And it's great to have that, even though you don't want the ballets danced as a museum piece. But if you just do the steps correctly, even with some of the ways he's changed them himself over the years, you still get the essence of Balanchine, and it works brilliantly.
I have one little question about Valse Fantasie that I remember very well about Mimi. And I think it's the solo with the jetés around the stage. And you're in the wings, right? So you were able to see this. So
well,
maybe
I mean, after I got my stamina, yeah.
Back, right.
The first few seasons, I was like
leaning over, right? I remember those jetés as being absolutely extraordinary. And I remember that it was almost like electricity. And there was a kind of an intensity, almost a fierceness to it. And you just went zooming around the stage.
When I got to that particular point in the ballet, and I had the entire State Theater to cover by myself to that music with the jump, I just was thrilled to have that opportunity. And I think I just took it by the reins and just went for it, you know, and I had a great time.
Yeah,
I really
you
enjoyed it.
Contained passion? Now I'm thinking that was maybe a moment of contained passion.
I don't know if it was contained. It didn't feel contained,
no,
but maybe
it was contained because it was fast.
It was fast, right.
So that contains it a little bit. And the passion was in that energy that you had.
Well, I mean, it was a joy to do as a ballet. The music really spoke to me. And so the fact that he chose it and allowed me to dance to it, you know, and choreographed that piece was a real privilege, really.
I saw a little inkling of your jetés today when you were telling Megan to, in the jetés, to really move that leg out.
The front leg.
Front leg.
As quick as it is, there is a moment where you do get the full picture of the body in the air before you start to, you know, the next
But
run.
it was the thrust of it. It was
the
the
thrust
force
of the front leg. Well, now that comes from Balanchine. That comes from a développé, or, you know, a battement, or, you know, all the accenting and the dynamic of the movement that he would insist on in class sometimes. And so that translates to the jump and, you know, many other things.
It was amazing.
Oh, well, thank
It really
you.
was.
I enjoyed it.
And John, in rehearsal, you talked about a Balanchine jeté
For the boys.
for the boys. Is that too technical to get into, or is it?
Well, Balanchine used to say that Nijinsky, and I also talked to an older dancer that had seen a lot of the Nijinsky dance. And Balanchine said the same thing, that it wasn't that he jumped so high, but it was the illusion in the air that made you think he was jumping so high. So what Balanchine would teach us in class for grand jetés, and I remember distinctly because when I first joined the company, I thought I had a big jump. And he deconstructed the way I was taught to do grand jeté, which was a grand battement, jump up as high as you can to that leg, and the other one will follow, and then you come down. Because he said, because what you see is you see the up and the over, you don't see the stop in the air. So he proceeded to really tear apart the grand jeté, and I was the lucky recipient of this, because he never would say this in class before. He just would tell you to do, you know. And he explained precisely how you battement the front leg, but not so high really, that it would knock you over. That you would go up, lock the legs, and not split. Later you could do the splits if you wanted, but lock them in a very small V. Work on elevation, not traveling. And he would have us also land sometimes on two legs. I won't get up and do it, but you jump and you land on sort of two legs. And this is what I was trying to help Jared with, because Jared was obviously in the grand battement, arabesque. And therefore, you don't get the stop in the air. You don't get this hesitation, this complete float idea.
How long did it take him to make this ballet? Do you remember, Mimi?
I don't remember, but I don't think too long. I mean, I don't think it was too difficult. I do remember that maybe it was the first rehearsal when he was starting the ballet. After my first entrance, he asked me if I thought I could go on. And I think I said something like, I think I need to pause here. So he said, okay, that's fine, I'll bring the boy in. So he was wondering if I could sustain more, you know, running around and jumping at that point. And I didn't think I could, and he just said, okay, I'll bring John in, or John Prince in, whoever he was worried, John Prince. Right.
Yeah.
I don't think it took him very long.
But he was always like that, though. You see, he was always, I mean, when he would do a new ballet, his habit normally was to go up to whoever he was thinking about casting as the lead and say, you know, I have an idea for a new ballet. Do you think you want to do? I mean,
it's a good accent, a good invitation.
Well, we all got it. But it was interesting that he would go up. I mean, he said this to me, you know, when he did, say, the scherzo in Suite No. 3, which he did for me in Marnie. And he came up to me and he said, you know, do you think you'd like to do? Why would he ask anybody if they wanted to be in one of his ballets? Right. But he just felt that this was
courtly
proper.
or nice behavior.
I mean, it just used to blow me away. You know, it was just so respectful. And he would say this, you know, well, maybe, he said choreographing should be like Verdi writing an aria. He used to use Verdi a lot. Yes. He said Verdi was a master of knowing when to give the soprano a rest and when to bring in the chorus, or when to, you know. So this, what Mimi says, absolutely, totally in character. He would just always, and he would ask the dancer, you know, maybe you need rest that minimum. And you know, if you did, you said, yeah, I think I'm dying. Or if you didn't, you didn't. But he would ask you. Yeah. Can you imagine? Well, we love Mr. B, and we love the company. And so I think, you know, it's the glory of our lives. Basically, we were able to work with him and be there in that epoch, in that period.
Very lucky.
Extremely lucky.